Okay. Just give it about a minute. Let some people trickle in here.
Sure. The first drive that went inside the 5 that didn't score touchdown, was that the first one of the game, the first drive of the game, or was that the one right before halftime?
That was the one before halftime. First drive of the game was a field goal. So
yeah, it was a field goal, but I couldn't remember if they were inside the 5 or not. They were pretty close. I just want to make sure I had it right in my head.
Oops. I had my YouTube thing open for it. I could hear myself. Okay. There we go. That's better. All right, I got 15 people in here already. Not a surprise. All right, you know what? We'll go ahead and start. Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I know it may be difficult to do so at this moment, but perhaps we can, what's the term? Misery loves company. We can all be miserable together for the next 40, 45 minutes or so. So Patrick Irvin, my colleague, is at the game today. He may or may not be calling into us. Who knows? But in his place, our fearless managing editor at BSD, Jared Slanina. Jared, just initial thoughts, whatever's on your mind, let it out.
I guess there's two main takeaways is that, let me give you the long version of this, but every October around this time of year, I watch Nightmare on Elm Street because it's my favorite horror franchise. So it's kind of an annual tradition, and it feels exactly like this, this Ohio State Penn State series, because every year I know exactly what's going to happen, but because it's my favorite thing, it's an annual tradition, and I sit down and I watch it, and it's the same movie unfolds basically. So I guess that's one of my main takeaways is that, Penn State kind of continues to build its depth, doing well with recruiting, getting playmakers, but Ohio State just always seems to be the better team. And it's a very familiar story that Ohio State seems to become limping in, show signs of concerns. And then for some way, somehow, when they play Penn State, they put everything together and those concerns just seem to disappear. The other takeaway is that I think this is the most obvious one, is that Penn State's offense did not find the end zone today. And if you do not do that, you are not going to beat Ohio State or any team of that caliber. So those are my main two things, basically.
Yeah, just like that's a good analogy of Elm Street or any horror movie that you've watched a bunch of times. You know, the hot blonde chick is going to get killed in the beginning, and you don't. Maybe you've talked yourself into thinking, oh, maybe this will be different. And then, nope, it's the same old movie. But interesting, you mentioned playmakers for Penn. Tyler Warren, of course, probably the biggest playmaker in that Penn State offense. We can all agree. Ohio State was certainly focused on trying to hold him in check. And, he did a decent job of it overall. I mean, he did have 4 catches, 47 yards, did have a great 33-yard run.
Absolutely.
Late in the game, which set Penn State up in prime position, first and goal from about, inside the 5. And you know what though? Like, for some reason, they didn't try to get the ball once into Warren's hands. Maybe if you couldn't find him in the pass, maybe at least try to have him line under center and just freaking launch at them. And you know what? If they stop it, okay, I can live with that. At least you tried. And, I hate to, I love Andy Kolnick and what he's done this year, but I really think that last drive that ended, coming up short on 4 tries at the goal line, just that may have been his worst series as Penn State's offensive coordinator. It was just 3 straight run plays up the gut, and then you decide to have Drew go back to pass, in such a tight space. I would have liked to see. I mean, I guess you'd have Vanga Ioane go in motion on 2nd and goal, but that was just ended up being another run up the gut. I don't know. I would have liked to see Warren line up under center and either runs or maybe tries to throw. I don't know if Ohio State would have necessarily expected a throw, especially in that situation. But just, yeah, you have to wonder. I mean, I know James Franklin doesn't call plays and all, but you get to wonder if they had told him, like, let's not get too cute down the goal line, because I know in the past, past games, they tend to run these, sort of gadget plays when they're on the doorstep of punching it in. But I don't know. That was just really baffling series there. And that ultimately, cost them a chance to tie it up, maybe send it to overtime. Who knows? Maybe Ohio State still would have driven down the field and kicked the game-winning field goal for all we know. But that was just one missed opportunity. Of course, you mentioned earlier in the game, right before halftime, Penn State gets a nice pass down inside the 5-yard line. Again, Aller throws a fade to Trey Wallace in the back of the end zone, and he looks like he might have caught it initially, and everyone saw it. Then, upon further review, actually, the Ohio State defender actually stripped the ball from him, basically. Not stripped, but he just somehow got control of the ball and got a foot in bounds before going out. So, I mean, got to give him credit there. But, man, absolute backbreaker. Maybe worst case, you're kicking a field goal there, and, it's 14-13 at the half. Of course, still probably would have lost in that situation anyway, but you needed a touchdown there. But, it's just those things. And I guess going back to the whole playmaker thing, yeah, Warren's your playmaker, and Ohio State's focused on him and check. So this is where other guys got to step up. Other receivers got to step up and be a playmaker. And, get Trey Wallace with a couple catches here and there, but nobody else stepped up. No William Clifford, no Julian Fleming, no Amari Evans, just completely disappeared. I mean, the only receiver besides Trey Wallace to catch a pass was Fleming, who had one catch for 4 yards. I mean, that is not going to cut it. And funny enough, I was texting with a friend during the game. I was telling him that this offense is missing a Jahan Dotson, a KJ Hamler, Chris Godwin, an elite clear-cut number one receiver, or Allen Robinson, someone that clear-cut number one guy that you can rely on, that you can go to, when you need a play. And yes, I mean, Tyler Warren has been that guy, but also to be relying on a tight end like that and not have one single receiver be able to step up and be that guy, that hurts. And I was also telling him, you put Drew Aller in Ohio State's offense, he's cooking with gasoline. With Jeremiah Smith and Mecca Buka, Carnell Tate. I mean, I would take I think all three of those guys, they would be 1, 2, and 3 receivers at Penn State. I mean, that just tells you how great those guys are, and just kind of how mid Penn State's receivers are by comparison. That was part of it. And the problem with that then is Penn State can't run the ball like they want to, because Ohio State can just focus on taking away the run game, which they did. Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton didn't do much on the ground. Singleton was utilized as a pass catcher.
Absolutely.
And I guess maybe embarrassingly enough, he was a leading receiver for Penn State today, 6 catches, 54 yards. And so, but that's just not going to cut it if you're trying to beat a team like Ohio State. And it doesn't matter how good your defense is. Like, that Ohio State team is good enough to put up some points on you. And, I thought to myself, Penn State would need to hit 20 to have a legit shot at winning this game. 13 is certainly not enough against this team.
Yeah, and 2021-24 is not unreasonable, and that was kind of my hope, is thinking, okay, Kotelnicki can scheme up some things against a really good defense. That could be a difference. The one thing that I was hoping, I guess my big hope would be the difference between last year and this year, is that while Penn State does not have a great receiver, a future NFL star on this roster receiver, I'm assuming, we've had at least 3 different guys have stepped up and had 100-yard games this year, between Fleming, Clifford, and Evans as well, in addition to Tyler Warren. But between that and just, and then also you include Fleming in that list if you want, concerning the USC game. So you've had different guys stepping up, and then to your point, that just didn't happen today outside of what's his name? Who's the receivers escaping my head? The one that actually did something today.
Trey Wallace.
Yeah, thank you. Trey Wallace was the only one that you
2
know.
catches,
Oh, that
45
was it.
yards.
Okay, I thought he had a little bit more than that even, but
Nope, that was
yeah,
it.
so we got basically nothing out of the receivers today, to your point. And to your other point, that was my biggest question mark for on this game is that last series where Penn State was at the goal line. Why wasn't there at least one play where Warren was taking the snap? You know, not a whole lot else was working. You'd think they're going to at least take one shot where he's going to go over the top, or hand the ball off to give the defense something to think about. And I was a little shocked that we didn't see that at least one time in that last series there. And as far as the last play, I'd have to go back and look at it, but it looked like they were trying to run the same play that was successful last week on 3rd and 1 when Bo hit Dinkins for the touchdown on 3rd and 1. Except this week, Ohio State has a much better defense, and they were prepared for it. So that just wasn't going to cut it. So again, that was just my biggest question mark. My biggest disappointment is they had a chance to, stuff it in there, get in the end zone finally for the offense, get in the end zone finally for the first time in the game and send it to the end zone. You got a 50 or send it overtime. You got a 50-50 chance. And we just didn't see that from them. So just a really disappointing and missed opportunity from the offense there.
Yeah, just it's I know we're kind of just feels like we're repeating the same old lines here year in year out. And and understandably there's there's a lot of frustration at the coaching staff and especially one James Franklin. And I preface saying cool with the fire Franklin talk, especially because the playoff is very much on the table, and Penn State is going to be they're probably double-digit favorites in their 4 remaining games. Starting with Washington next weekend for the whiteout games. So, they take care of business in those, and they're hosting a December playoff game at the Beeve against, well, I don't know, maybe Boise State, but we all want to see his team break through into the playoff, and that's still very much on the table. So there's a little bit of but that being said, I do understand all fans' frustrations with Franklin because this is his 6th offensive coordinator now, and it's been essentially the same story against Ohio State almost every year except 2016. So I mean, so Jared, you just feel like maybe he's just like let's say really good coach. He can pretty much beat everyone else is on the schedule, especially those that equal talent or less. But when it comes to the biggest dogs on the schedule, like the Ohio States, like he just doesn't have that ability to get the dub.
I mean, if you think about it, Penn State and James Franklin, at the head of this program, has done a great job, pretty much everything except for beating the best teams in the nation. They win a ton of games. It's been a little while since they've had one of those just really screwy games where they just come out flat or unprepared. I mean, they pretty much come out and play to the potential. And even today, obviously things didn't go their way, but the effort was there. It wasn't just like they just continued to drop the ball and shit. And they made, there's mistakes, obviously, but it's not like they were shooting themselves in the foot and just not playing to the potential. So, I mean, they do everything really well. He's really built the program. He's built the roster so much from when you think about when he took over and we were still kind of recovering from the sanctions, but just you think about the depth and the top end talent, the players we're saying in the NFL every year, the amount of wins, I know a lot of fans don't want to hear this, but prestigious bowl games are coming with 10-win seasons. So everything's, he's doing a great job of everything considering what he took over, but that is the absolute one biggest thing. And I get the frustration, it's year after year, you're thinking, we're going to get one of these, or, we should be okay to beat Ohio State, once every few years. And it's just not happening at all, unfortunately. So I will say the one silver lining, best case scenario is Penn State, as long as they don't beat themselves the rest of the way, they're going to finish 11-1. If that's the case, they go to the playoffs, maybe you get another shot at Ohio State, neutral site. You never know what's going to happen. You know, and if you think about it, say, you know, depending what happens with Ohio State the rest of the way, they got a shot at finishing #1 in the nation. And you say, okay, you have one loss to the #1 team or #2 team, whatever the case may be at the end of the year by a single score. You know, do they get that 5 seed? And if so, then the route is, you know, right now at least it would be Boise State or the non Power 4, whatever you want to call it, team, and then, you know, a shot at you know, and this is just what's projected right now, the Big 12 champ. So you're looking at Boise State and then BYU or Iowa State. Could Penn State beat both those teams if they play their potential? I'd say so. So then, you know, you're in the semifinals. So for all the people who are thinking, you know, doom and gloom, fire Franklin, let's just kind of, you know, restart this whole thing. You know, I'm definitely not there and definitely don't agree with that. But I also do understand, you know, why are we seeing the same thing every year? Why is the same story over and over? So I understand both sides, I guess, but you know, I'm going to try to lean towards the optimistic side and say, let's just see how things play out. And, you know, maybe we just kind of make our way to the playoffs and see where things go from there.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a topic that I don't know. I think Pat and I might delve into next Wednesday for our Washington preview show. You know, about what is this program's ceiling? Because I mean, it almost feels like Franklin is hitting that ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you really think? I know Matt Rule is the name that always gets thrown around, but like, what you think we put Matt Rule in there? Like, we're gonna get over the hump? You know, I mean, any guarantee that's gonna happen? And like, and of course, it also ignores, you know, laying an egg against a team of lesser talent than us, which, you know, to his credit, the last couple seasons that hasn't happened. I think Illinois 2021 is the last time I saw anything like that happen. Of course, I guess, you know, it almost happened after, you know, last year at the Indiana game, but you know, maybe that's something we can dive into a little bit towards the end of the show. But I do want to circle back to, you know, the beginning of the game and talk about the defense. We've talked enough about the offensive woes,
Sure.
but beginning of the game. So of course, Penn State, they eat up almost the entire or half the first quarter, kick a field goal. Would have liked 7, but you know what? They got points. And then Ohio State comes out, very first drive, pick 6 for Zion Tracy. Just reads that, you know, reads the formation like
Beautiful play.
Just
wow. Yeah.
You know, that gets the crowd going. It's 10-0. You know, it's early, but I'm thinking at that, I don't know what you're thinking, Jared, but at that point, I'm just thinking like, all right, game on, you know, let's do this. You know? And I don't know, Jared, like, but then they come out, you know, Ohio State comes back, they score, you know, they do score a touchdown. They hit some nice passes. Penn State comes back. They end up going, I think it was 3 and out. I'm pulling up the play-by-play here real quick. Yeah, they go 3 and out. They punt. Ohio State gets it back, and they end up getting a touchdown. But they also, that drive was extended in part by a really dumb taunting penalty on Elliott Washington after I think Cornell Tate made the catch and fell short of the first down. And I mean, it was, of course, aside from the fact that Washington didn't really do much to, you know, to bring Tate down, it was still I don't know. It just felt like a really ticky-tack call. I mean, you see taunting like that all the time. And
to me, that felt like a really bad interpretation of the rule because I understand the stepping over a player and why that's a personal foul. But the way he landed, it was kind of like he was straddling Elliott. So for him to stand up, he kind of had to step over him, you know. And then I don't know if the referee heard something. I couldn't see anything when they showed the replay, but you know, Elliott stood up. He was kind of straddling him, and he was looking down. But I mean, if you're in that situation, you're looking down to make sure you don't step on the person, you know, and you know where your feet are, you know where to step to get up and get back to the huddle. So it wasn't like he was standing over him and running his mouth or anything like that. So I really didn't agree with that call. And to me, it just felt like a bad interpretation. I think I understood what he was calling. It was just, you know, not exactly what the rules meant to oppose, I guess. And then if you go back a few plays before that too, don't forget there was a 3rd and 2 where they were gifted the first down when Abdul just, kind of did what he's done a lot this season. Unfortunately, as valuable as he's been in, he's jumped off sides quite a few times, and he was just a little too excited and had a 3rd and 2 and just gifted them a first down without having to force them to convert anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I mean, I thought they had cleaned up those offsides penalties. It seemed like they were. So I remember, it had been a few games since I had seen them do that, but
Yeah,
unfortunately,
there were a lot in the first 2-3 weeks. It felt like there was
I mean, geez, how many times
three
was
games
the
for the
first
first few weeks. But to your point, yeah, they did clean it up quite a bit.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's just it's unfortunate, and of course, I think we've said back then, they can't do this against Ohio State, and sure enough, they did, and that cost them 7 points. So yeah, the defense, after that pick six, they started to get shredded some. I think Ohio, I guess you got to give credit to Chip Kelly, the offensive coordinator of Ohio State. He drew up some new things that maybe Penn State's defense wasn't prepared for.
They found the holes, and they found ways to get them off balance.
They found some holes in the defense. They were able to exploit them. Now, to Tom Allen's credit, he adjusted and didn't wait till halftime to do it this time. The rest, after those 2 touchdowns, the Buckeyes only kicked 2 field goals the rest of the way, Jared. I mean, So it's really, in my opinion, I cannot blame the defense for today's loss. I mean, Ohio State's offense is good enough to score a couple touchdowns. And you have to, the offense has got to be able to put it in the end zone a couple times themselves. I mean, something they've been doing all season long. And, again, it just feels like pretty much same old song and dance. Just defense was doing enough to keep them in striking distance, and then the offense just kind of lets them down.
Yeah, but, I mean, if you think about it too, the defense gave them a pick six early in the game, and they allowed 20 points to the number 4 team in the nation. So if the defense scores a touchdown, only allows 20, then all you're asking for your offense is to get in the end zone twice, or at the very least score a touchdown, kick 2 field goals, and send the game in overtime, which they almost did. And then they couldn't produce that much. So that's really the bottom line of why this losing streak to the Buckeyes continues yet again.
Although, speaking of field goals, at least Ryan Barker's still money.
So yeah. Happy with Ryan Barker. That second one was a 44-yarder, I believe. Definitely wasn't a chip shot in a very high pressure situation, and he nailed it. So.
He's got it. I mean, that could, and that will prove. That'll prove, important down the stretch here.
Absolutely.
There will be situations where he'll, maybe the offense stalls and they need to get some points, and he'll.
Yeah. I will say this though, that it's obvious that that's a case of, in practice, one kicker is much better than the other, and in games it's the exact opposite, and a lot of times with kicking it comes down to that.
Yeah, some people, they're like practice warriors, but when it comes to actually producing in a game situation, they can't do that.
We had a situation on our high, not to get too off topic. We'll talk about the Howland Tigers for 30 seconds as opposed to Penn State, but we had a kicker who could hit anything in practice, and then you get in the game, and he could barely make an extra point, let alone, anything was wide left, wide right. And then he suffered an injury right then the season, last game of the year. We put our backup in, who was terrible in practice, and all of a sudden he's nailing field goals. He's putting kickoffs out of the end zone. So sometimes you just have those situations. I think that's exactly it with Sandehak and Barker, that, one's really good in practice and one's really good in games. And unfortunately, they have that situated now, it seems.
Yeah. I do want to also touch, I know we talked about a little bit, but the officiating, and look, this is not, you can't blame the officiating too much for this loss, but there was definitely some, we'll talk about the time, but there's definitely a couple defensive holding against Ohio State that wasn't called that was pretty clear. And it actually, I'm thinking about one drive that ended 3 hours, just lofting one to Liam Clifford.
Yes.
Ohio State's selling out. They're running cover 0 to stop a 3rd and short run attempt. and Howard just lofts one up, and Liam Clifford's clearly getting held. The ball sails over him. No flag comes up. So that was incredibly frustrating. Not saying that drive would have led to points, but at least they could have moved the chains, avoided a 3-and-out, kept the defense a little more fresh.
Yeah, I mean that was a crucial moment when Ohio State was that they were that was kind of before they'd established momentum and erased that 10-point deficit, I believe. So it was a very crucial juncture in the game. But yeah, you're looking at a 20-25 yard completion perhaps, and Clifford was definitely had a great shot at the ball. Even though Aller just lofted it up, but. There was very early contact and there was just absolutely, nothing there. So I really don't understand that on call. And I know this is going to sound like sour grapes, but, it kind of feels like the same old story whenever I watch the Buckeyes. If there's ever a questionable 50-50 call, it always seems to go, in their direction. So call it what you want, but it definitely seems like an obvious pattern to me, because I don't know if you saw this on the BSD Slack, but when we after the play in I think it was towards the end of the third quarter that was ruled a fumble by Ohio State, and AJ Harris recovered. Right when they announced the review, a few of us were just saying, yeah, we kind of know how this is going to be called, and sure enough, they came back and with the replay. I didn't really see anything too conclusive in real time. Yeah, it probably was an interception, but there really wasn't anything on replay to suggest it needed to be overturned. And sure enough, it was, and ruled incompletion. So just always seems like there's a few, 2-3 big breaks at least that's gonna go their way, and that's kind of how things worked out again today.
To be fair, I didn't mention, but we did get a break when it looked like Will Howard was going to scamper into the end zone for a touchdown and make it 21-10 Ohio State. And I think it was Zion Tracy who kind of poked the ball last second.
Oh, yeah, that was
or not Zion. Wheatley pokes the ball. And, it takes kind of a lucky bounce into the end. It could have easily gone out at the 1, and Ohio State could have punched it in from there, but it goes off of Howard's knee and right over the pylon into the back of the end. That definitely – that alone kind of kept this Penn State in the game for a lot longer than maybe they would have been.
Yeah, because if he would have scored that's 21-10, and Ohio State has they've an 11-point lead against an offense that clearly didn't do a whole lot today, and they got all the momentum in the world. So yeah, I think if he scores there and it goes up 21-10, then you may be looking at a different second half where it's wrapped up much earlier than it was, and Penn State's not trying to punch it into send overtime, but it's clearly over well before that. So yeah, that was an absolutely huge play, but by Wheatley. But fortunately, defense can't do anything. Can't do everything today.
Yeah, no. I mean, again, offense has got to score and produce. I mean, it's.
Tim, what was the total? Do you have a few of the box score up?
I got the box score up here. I mean, I can,
Penn State did move the ball, but it's not like they're it's not like it was last year where they were completely lost and we're trying
170 total yards, 150 passing, 120 rushing. I mean,
yeah. What did Ohio State have total yardage?
158, 182 passing, 176 rushing. So
you said 358 to 270.
Yeah.
Okay, so they did have a pretty sizable advantage, but it's not like Penn State was not doing anything. They were moving the ball a little bit, but just had to settle for a field goal early, had the interception in the end zone before half, and then got stuffed inside the 1 at the end, and just you need to do a little bit more than that, and you need to take advantage of those opportunities against a team like Ohio State.
Absolutely. I mean, especially they won the turnover battle 2-1, but unfortunately, that wasn't a difference maker in that one. So it's just, time possession about equal, 31 minutes for Ohio State, 28.5 for Penn State. So,
and if I recall last year, it was quite a bit in Ohio State's favor, if I recall, because I think Penn State had a lot of short possessions. So, if you want to look for a silver lining, at least there's a sign of improvement there.
Okay, Bennett, what's up, Bennett? Thanks for tuning in. Say something to ease my heart about the remaining games. don't know. Have we talked enough about today's game, Jared? Do you want to talk? I think we're kind of done talking.
Yeah, and I
We
kind of
said
feel
all
like
we
it's
same
kind of
old
like,
song and dance. I mean,
yeah, it's not like there's too much to really break down. It's just kind of
you know,
maybe some final thoughts. It was
defense played well enough to win, but the offense didn't. That's copy paste from last year,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
So
We can kind of sum it up there. You're not going to beat the number 4 team. You're not going to beat Ohio State by if your offense is in the end zone, and it's just another case of Ohio State had a bit of a better game plan and executed a little bit better. Drew up better. Schemed up things better on the offensive side of the ball. And once again, they were the better team when they played today. So. I think we can kind of sum it up there because we've seen this and kind of gone through this several years in a row now. So, but yeah, as far as things to ease Bennett's heart for the remaining games, if they play to their potential, they're going to win out those 4 games and finish 11-1, which I think before the season started, I would have been very ecstatic with that result. I will say with the the game that's coming up most recently against Washington next week, I'm not very impressed with their offense. And as frustrating it was to watch our offense this time around, I think they'll definitely be able to scheme up things, get their defense out of position, and really find some mismatches against them.
And it is a whiteout.
And it is a whiteout. And I don't think Washington's offense is really gonna, be able to move the ball up and down against.
I haven't been too impressed with Washington this year. I mean,
no.
I'm not surprised. I figured they were going to go for a transition type year with the new head coach.
Absolutely.
Having lost all but 2 starters, between your offense and your defense combined.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
too much to overcome.
And I understand they were a national runner-up last year, but at the same time, like you said, they had about 2 returning starters, and everyone who's starting to run the team is in the NFL or followed DeBoer to Alabama. So yeah, this is definitely a rebuilding transition year with a new coach and totally different lineup. So I think as far as Washington, unless they really, really come out flat and just really don't play like themselves, I'm not too concerned as far as how they match up with Washington. Purdue is not a very good team this year at all, and Penn State should have no trouble there. Minnesota is interesting to me. They can run the ball a little bit. They can make some plays. Their defense is pretty stingy. It is on the road, but again, I think it's one of those things where
it's probably the toughest remaining game on the schedule.
Absolutely, yeah.
And even that, I would imagine Penn State's probably going to open at maybe 9.5, 10-point favorite.
Probably something like that. Yeah. I think the offense. I don't think the offense is gonna run them down the field and score.
No, but I feel like they're a team that can beat.
But it should be one of those
teams like Minnesota. Yes,
27-17, and even if they just play kind of okay, if they don't play lights out that game, and then Maryland, again, I don't think Maryland is that great of a team. And then the other thing, as much as Maryland, we heard so much about a rivalry, a decade ago, they joined the Big Ten. It's been very, very lopsided, where it just seems, I don't know if it's just something the way they match up against one another, but recently I've noticed that whenever Penn State plays Maryland, they just beat the pants off of them and just kind of shut down the line of scrimmage.
I think it's going to be a thing as long as Franklin's a coach.
Yeah, and another thing too is Maryland always seems to give Ohio State a tough game, so it's just one of those weird matchups that you kind of see those things year after year where certain teams play each other a little closer and certain teams don't. But yeah, with Maryland, for whatever reason, they just never really seem to be able to.
I think it's because a lot of the players in Penn State recruits Maryland in the DMV area heavily, and a lot of those kids on the roster, it's like, especially when they go to Maryland, it's like their homecoming for them.
True.
So get a chance to play in front of friends and family. So it's one of those things. But yeah, I think also Franklin, having been a former head coach in waiting there at Maryland, been an assistant there for a bunch of years, I think. Yeah, he still, I think, relishes in beating them. Right. So it's one of those weird things. Yeah, I think as long as Franklin's there, I won't worry about beating Maryland.
So I think the two big concerning spots are, next week if the team comes out flat, because we have seen that
Because that
before.
is, yes, that's been
Where,
the kind of a theme after the first loss.
yeah, and last year I
Ohio
even remember I got some flack for this, but after the Ohio State loss, I went back and looked at the week after the first loss of the season under Franklin, and I believe, if I'm going off memory here, I have to pull this up, but I believe Penn State's record was 3-5 after the loss, and one of those losses was against, or one of those wins was against Temple, and I think the other was against like a really bad Purdue or Northwestern team. And then several of those losses were upset losses. I know at least two of them were against Michigan State teams that they really the one rain delay game, and then the one at home. And they threw Michigan State had a really talented wide receiver who's kind of their entire offense.
Felton Davis.
Yes, Felton Davis. And if you recall, Penn State was winning the whole game. Michigan State just hung around, and I think they had like a 4th and 20 late or something like that. And for whatever reason, they didn't put a safety on Davis, and they found him 1-on-1 for a long touchdown, and they escaped with the victory. Michigan State escaped with an upset there. But anyways, I guess getting back to my point though, it was looking rough the week after the first loss, but then last week, after it wrote that column, they bucked that trend. So. Hopefully that's kind of a thing of the past as well. And to Franklin's credit, there's a lot of things that we criticized him over the years that he has learned from and cleaned up. So we can hope that's the thing of the past. And I'm pretty confident that next week they'll come out looking pretty sharp. And like you said, so whiteout. There was a scenario a couple years ago where I think it was the same situation where it was the week after the first loss of the season. They had Minnesota in the whiteout, and they just came out and played their absolute best game of the season up to that point and just beat the pants off of them. So, but yeah, anyway, just getting the rest of the season, as long as they play to their potential, they'll be fine. Washington, they'll be okay with as long as they don't completely shoot themselves in the foot. And Minnesota will be a challenge. The offense will need to show up. But they'll need to make some plays and scheme up some things, and not just completely rely on the defense. But I think we're in pretty good shape as long as this team doesn't fall apart or we don't have a string of crucial injuries or anything like that. And I think we did come out pretty healthy today. I can only think of
any critical injuries.
I can only think of the one, and I want to call him Ellie's, which is not his last name any longer, but I believe
Devontae Thomas.
Yeah, I believe he went down, but he was back in action, so we came out of this healthy, which is at least one other silver lining.
Milan or Milan, however you say your name. At least we'll make the college football playoff. We are not a great team. Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you define a great team. If you're talking like, as in like Ohio State caliber team that's going to win a national championship, then yeah, I agree. We're not great. Definitely a very good team still. Don't let today's win make you think that we're bad or anything. I mean, again, Penn State's probably double-digit favorites against all the remaining opponents, starting with Washington next week. So it's a matter of going forward of just taking care of business. Not what I keep saying. Don't let Ohio State beat you twice. And I think now, especially, that the playoff is still very much on the table here, and the possibility of hosting a home playoff game in December, right before Christmas. I think I'm sure that's something that could still keep a team motivated. So I don't think a motivation factor should be a concern next week, especially again, the whiteout, and hopefully I understand fan base. Everyone's very upset right now, and I get it. You have every right to be upset. I'm upset. More of just maybe resigned as opposed to upset, but just, I get it. You can, mourn this loss for a day or two, but I think by the time we get to next, late next week, I think we'll be talking about Washington and just talking about trying to win out these remaining games and just taking care of business, get that 11-1 record, which, by the way, not to toot my own horn, I'm only one on BSD who had the guts to predict 11-1 while the rest of y'all said 10-2. Which, would, I think, defy expectations still.
Yeah, and to that point, my prediction was 10-2, and one of my losses was either at USC or at Wisconsin. So
Yeah, and I mean, and I can,
they're better than what I was expecting at this point. Technically, not technically that they are. So
and yeah, I know people say, well, USC was coming. Well, yeah, but you know what? Still, those were road trips to, especially Wisconsin, Camp Brandwell at night's not an easy environment, and look, USC has had her number for so long. I mean, I went to the last couple of Rose Bowls where we lost, and then I mean, you and I are probably old enough to remember the last time they beat them, 1996 in the kickoff classic, but probably a lot. I'm going to bet some of our good number of our viewers aren't old enough to remember that. So we did beat USC for the first time, either in their lifetimes or that they can recall. So that was a huge, and the way they did it too, to come back from, a 14-point deficit on the road. I mean, in the past, that's a game we lose for sure.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
So
yeah.
they got that one job back. They got the Wisconsin, and then Wisconsin, quarterback, Drew Auer goes down. And then, I remember in the Slack channel, we're all thinking this is Iowa 2021 all over again.
I was convinced that was.
And it's sure, maybe it felt like it for the first couple of drives, but maybe to say that pick six kind of changed things. But the offense really got into a rhythm under Bo after that. And they were able to, gradually salt that game away. And so, they've done some really good things. I mean, it's just, again, this is the biggest game. This is what we hired Andrew Kolnicki for, to try to get us over the hump and beat Ohio State, and it didn't happen. And so, rightfully, fans are angry and upset. I get it. Maybe we can cool it a bit on the Fire Franklin talk. At least, unless if we don't win out, then you know what? You can have at it then. I won't stop you there. But
but I think we start at this point. That comment that Penn State is not a great team, and I guess depends on your definition of great. I mean, there's 134 FCS teams right now. Penn State's probably 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. So they're in great shape, considering where they are right now, where they stand as a program. But it just kind of be the same thing over and over. They're a great team. They can beat almost everybody. But when they play one of the very best teams in the nation, it just seems like they just can't get everything together. And once again, it sorry to beat a dead horse, but once again, it comes down to the offense just not being able to show up in those games. So, I would say a great team, but not one of the top tier, very best in the nation. The top few who are competing, the true national title contenders. There's just that a little bit of a gap between Penn State and those programs once again.
Yeah, so that again, yes, Bennett. Stay positive. This game sucked. Nobody's suggesting otherwise. Nobody's saying you can't be mad at.
Anything can happen.
Members of the coaching staff, by all means, you can be mad today, but let's also keep things in perspective. Most people, if we told you preseason Penn State would go 11-1, the only loss to Ohio State, you all would have taken that.
Absolutely.
So again, that's not to say you can't be angry about how today's game played out, but perspective, folks. So everything that we were hoping for, cracking the playoff for the first time, all on the table still. So it's a matter of, the team. And we're not on the team, of course, but this is where the whole 1-0 this week mentality really comes into play. You shake off this loss, and then just focus on the next game ahead of you, and just
And I don't know if we've and I mean we just as like just college football fans, I don't know if we've quite adjusted to the new reality of college football, where you had one loss like that, especially in the BCS area, and boom, your season's over. So and with the 14 playoff, one loss could very well do it. Look at Georgia last year. So I don't know if we've quite adjusted where you lose a game, maybe you lose 2 games. And then you put things together, you get hot at the right time, you get some right match, you get some good matchups in the playoffs. You win the battle of attrition because you have to think by, another month from now, there's a lot of programs that are going to be dealing with different injuries in different areas. So sometimes you just need things to work out, you know, in your favor, and you just never know. You know, you kind of think about, you know, Penn State doing what they need to do and taking care of business, and at least putting themselves in a situation where they are a playoff team, and you go from there. You know, maybe you get the favorable matchup, maybe you stay healthy while you know the Georgias and Ohio States aren't. You know, maybe like I mentioned earlier, maybe you get Ohio State in a rematch and you play them in a neutral location and you figure some things out in offense, and you know you beat them a second time around. So, you know, I think we just need to get used to this new reality, and, you know, one loss, especially a close loss to a very highly ranked team, isn't necessarily the end of the world, and it's definitely not the end of the season.
No, absolutely not. So, you know, anyone who's acting like the season's over, step away from the ledge, you know, go for a walk, log off, let's keep things in perspective here.
And you know what, Tim? So last year, Penn State lost this game 20-12. This year, they lost 20-13. So at this rate, another 8 years from now, Penn State wins 21-20. So we just need to be patient, I guess.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. Well, hit 45 minutes here. So any final thoughts, Jared? Things you want to get off your chest?
No, I think we kind of covered it. You know, we definitely covered the offensive woes and just kind of the missed opportunities. You know, I just do think that was kind of the one really stunning thing to come out of this game. Is my prediction was 27-21. So I was expecting a loss. I was expecting a loss by about, you know, by close to what happened today. The one thing I wasn't expecting was just the offense not to be able to just find the end zone of all. You know, I wouldn't expect them to play lights out and light up the scoreboard, but I figured we'd get more production out of them than we did today. So, you know, I was kind of thinking we'd see an okay game from the offense, and Ohio State would make a big play, momentum shifting play towards the end like they typically do. So that was just really disappointing not to see much from offense yet again in the big game. But, you know, we'll see where we go from here. You know, there's still a lot of football to be played yet, and like I said early, or just a little bit ago, that this is a totally different world of college football, and, you know, we could see some we there's a world of possibilities, you know, left, even if it doesn't feel like it is at this time. So we're healthy and we'll move forward, and, you know, like we keep saying, Penn State plays to their full potential, and we're potentially looking at 11-1 season going from there. So let's see how things shake out from here.
Yeah, well, one more comment just from Joe. Offense and scores a touchdown. How it's acceptable. Same story year in, year out. There was another Franklin can't win when it counts. I feel your frustration, Joe.
And nothing Joe's saying is incorrect, you know?
Nope. Completely acceptable. But I guess, you know, again, here, you know, like I said, win out, make the playoff. You know what? Let's just say this real quick. Before we sign up, let's say Penn State wins out as we think they should. You get a home playoff game. They win that home playoff game, and then I don't know who they would draw in the quarterfinals, but, like, you know, let's say they lose a close one in the quarterfinal. How would you feel about that? You know, would your opinion of the program, your opinion of Franklin change in any meaningful manner? Where, you know, would you call that a successful season?
So that's a hard one to answer, because I kind of feel like, depending who we beat in the first round, I kind of feel we'd be in the same situation where I feel like Penn State, what was really needed, and I'm not saying they need to win a national championship this year, but they need to beat a team that is a true contender,
National title contender.
top two, top three,
Yep.
top four teams. You know, if they could, you know, somehow get a advance, and they get a game against either rematch against Ohio State, a game against a Texas, a Georgia, you know, beat in Oregon, beat one of those teams, and then I think we're kind of in business, and we can say, okay, the sky is the limit. You know, we're right there with everyone else. But until we do that, it's just kind of feel the same way that, yeah, we're one of the best teams in the nation. Out of 134, we're 6th, 7th, somewhere around there, maybe up to 5th or so. But there's just still that gap that we just can't, that hurdle we just cannot overcome to beat one of those very top teams. So
I would say I thought about this beginning of the year. To me, like I would definitely consider it a successful season, like truly a successful season, if they made the playoff, and then they got to the semifinals. Like that would probably be best case scenario in my book, because that means you probably beat some Power 4 conference champion to get to the semis. So that would
yeah, and even if they get it in a way where say like we talked about that scenario earlier, if they do end up being the 5th seed, they would get, say, a Boise State or a non-Power 4 team, and then they would get, most likely the Big 12 champion. So we know it's not beating those the Georgia or Texas like we had mentioned, but it's showing that you can go into that atmosphere and win 2 really big games and get yourself 60 minutes from playing for a national championship. So, if maybe they don't beat a top tier national title contender in that scenario, but it's definitely showing positive direction that you're right there,
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is a topic I think Pat and I will maybe touch on more next week, perhaps when we're previewing Washington. But it's good to just hear your thoughts on that, Jared. And so, yeah, we've definitely gone over the time we wanted to go over this. But thanks to all you who tuned in today. I know it's probably difficult to do so, but maybe you just wanted to, be miserable with the two of us, and we thank you for that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We're continuing to try to grow the channel. We're at 121 subscribers now, so thank you so much to all who've helped on this, considering the fact that Pat and I just the last week of August, the week of the West Virginia game. So to have that many people jumping on board, subscribing in just a couple months, we're pretty happy with that. We want to keep this going. So thank you very much. Pat and I will be back on Wednesday to preview Washington and maybe talk about other things. So Jared, thanks for coming in and playing pinch hitter for us. Perhaps, and we'll let's try to get you on the show at some point after a win too. So
absolutely, yeah. It seems like
I see a third wheel on our show at some point. We could certainly try to make that work. So
yeah, it seems like it does work out that when I do pinch hit, it's after a loss. So yeah,
maybe we'll try to make you
again where we can have some more positive vibes and more of a celebratory feel than kind of trying to find the silver linings. And
we'll try to get you on for the Purdue post game show. How about that?
Yeah, let's do that. I think that'd be the safest bet.
So, all right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you again on Wednesday.